So shifting a little bit from that national lens to our state lens, and the Department of Children and Youth is a newer department that combined all of the child serving departments together, the programs from those departments. And so they have been taking great strides into a lot of alignment discussions, a lot of making sure that programming and all of their efforts are coordinated and moving forward. And so I don't know how, me personally, just one of those items would cause me to, wow, but they are doing all of these items all at the same time. So I appreciate Jeff, Janene, and Laura coming today, and we appreciate your efforts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Okay. It's a Friday. That was really weak. I need a little bit more energy to get me along. So we've got a lot of content in 30 minutes, but I'll say it again. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Perfect. That sounds much better. So I'm going to flip through here. This is our comms team that does this to me, and I said my head is way too big on that screen. So I'm Jeff Van Deusen. I am the assistant director of the department, and I'm going to go into a little bit here as far as how we came to be. But I have the great privilege of working very closely with Director Winty to oversee all things in DCY. So I have worked with, I see many familiar faces. I have worked with many of you throughout the years. I started my career as a child care licensing specialist, and then I was a supervisor as a bureau chief for years, so overseeing all things child care at JFS, then moved into the child welfare space. Was deputy director at the Office of Families and Children at JFS, which was very interesting, having that child care background and then going into the child welfare space. But that is an area that, as an early care and education system at the state, we needed to do better to work together, because you all and many folks and many teachers are working very closely with child welfare, unfortunately. So, but just to kind of fast forward and let you know what we're going to talk about today. So, want to touch on the DCY goals, career pathways. These are some topics that Judith let us know that she felt like that you all would want to know some more about. Licensing alignment, background checks, and then the new child care cred program that we wanted to talk about. So I'm going to start out with just giving some intros and some background, and then turn over to two people that's way smarter than me and a lot of this stuff, so we will just jump right in. So Judith had mentioned as far as DCY and where we came from. So in 2023, Governor DeWine signed into the law the new Department of Children and Youth. So that's been a little over 2 years ago, and we continue to say we're new. I'm going to continue to say we're new until we, it's not appropriate anymore. But we jumped in really fast because we knew that if we needed to show some return on investment going into an upcoming biennial budget, that we couldn't wait until, the law actually gave us until January 1 of 24 to stand up the department. And we said, okay, we're going to do that actually January 25. And we said, you know what we're going to do? We got to get this and bring these folks together in about 6 months. And we did that. We brought a team of people and teams of people together to form DCY. So what that meant was, in the law, we took child programs from 5 different state agencies and merged into one. It was Governor DeWine's vision that we had one agency that was dedicated to children, and that director and those staff would wake up every morning and go to work and just think about kids. Now, certainly I came from JFS, and my job, of course, every day I woke up and thought about kids. But I also know at the department level, there was a lot of other things. There was workforce at JFS, there was, all these different programs. If it's Department of Education and Workforce, certainly there was preschool special ed, but there was K-12 system. So this department was able to bring these programs together into one. So those programs that came into the Department of Children and Youth, and correct me if I miss any here, there was child care from JFS, and also all things child welfare from JFS. We have preschool special ed, preschools, early care and education from the Department of Education and Workforce. From the Department of Developmental Disabilities is early intervention. Mental health and addiction services, which I believe is it tomorrow, there'll be the Department of Behavioral Health, early childhood mental health. What am I missing? Oh, from health, from all things maternal and infant vitality. So that was bringing staff and all of this expertise and all these different program areas together into one agency. I often say it was like we experienced, or I was in the middle of a divorce. We went through 5 divorces of 5 different state agency staff, and we brought everyone together as a new, happy, blended family. We realized pretty quickly that not every state agency did things the right way, and we've been working through that. But the most important thing is we were so excited that all of our team that have come together, and they still to this day, are passionate and share the same vision as Governor DeWine, as Director Wente, and myself, that we need to make sure that kids are at the priority. There's often kind of a misnomer that this agency is just an early care and education agency. It's not. We go from prenatal, maternal, all the way through 21. So that children's services space is really where that a lot of those older kiddos come in. But with that, we know that we have to do a better job as a system to wrap around families early. So that's why we do have a lot of these early programs. I call it that prevention side or that early side of the system. We do a great job as a system to react. When something bad happens or a family is in crisis, we do a great job as far as reacting and helping that family. What, as a system that we haven't historically done a great job on, is how we get to that family at the question and not the crisis. We want to get them to prevent them from getting into child welfare and making sure that they're connected with home visiting services, make sure that we are doing what we can to connect them to early intervention. So that's been a major goal. We have established a mission for ourselves, or a mission tagline, and that's do what's right for kids. I assure you that Director Wente and I, when we bring the team together to talk about a new policy, a new IT system, whatever it may be, the first question that we ask ourselves isn't, well, do we have the money? Of course, that's an important part, but it is, does this do better for kids and families? Then we'll try to figure out the money. Then we'll figure out how the IT system is going to support that. But what is it that this program or this policy is going to do to help kids? So that's how we approach everything. I want to touch on this right here is when we moved into the new department, we knew that there was so much great work that had happened in those legacy agencies and so much that we needed to embark on. So we needed to narrow down our focus and say, what do we need to really be focused in on to make some major impact? So we created what we call our bold goals. So the first one here is around maternal and infant wellness. Ohio hasn't done so great in the infant mortality space. We've had high numbers for years in the number of babies that are dying every year. So we created this goal to reduce the number of infant deaths per year. What I will say is we're excited. We are starting to see that needle move. We are right now at a low that we haven't seen in many years in Ohio. So we're excited about that. The second bold goal is around early care and education, is to increase kindergarten readiness. We know that our kiddos, even pre-pandemic, were going into kindergarten and not prepared. And certainly the pandemic didn't help us with that. And again, you all know that better than anyone. But that's the second goal. And then the third goal is that we reduce the number of kids in foster care. Ohio has historically been pretty high as it relates to the number of kids in care. We are excited to see that since 2016, we've reduced by about 1,200 to 1,500 kids in the foster care system in Ohio. So that's great. That's great. We need to celebrate that. and we continue to celebrate it, but we still have a lot of work to do. But one piece of this that we are still very high as it relates to other states is the number of kids in congregate care settings. So that might be a group home or a residential care facility, and kiddos do much better in family-based settings. So we are working hard to work with our county agencies to reduce that number of overall kids in care, but in congregate care settings. So lots of work around that. This slide here kind of shows kind of where we are now, what our short-term goals are, and our future. Governor DeWine is very competitive. He is someone that often says, what are other states doing, because I want to be better than any other state. Well, that's great, because we are the same way. We want to be the best. So we are really pushing toward these 3 goals. That doesn't mean the others aren't, everything else in the department isn't important. It's very important. But this is kind of where our laser focus has been over the last couple years and will continue to be through this administration. Okay, this here, one thing that I wanted to, before I turn it over to the team, is let you know some of the things that you can do to stay connected to our department. We have a lot of things moving. So we have what we call our Tuesday Times. That is sent out every other Tuesday, and that's where we send out to our county agencies and partners a lot of the business type, I say the business type of communication, things that, you know, whether it might be a training for a caseworker or training for a provider, that's where we're putting that. And you can go on our website, it has all of this there. We have sent out a newsletter called Kids Corner since we were created. We are getting ready to shift that to, it's going to be called Scope. And what this is going to be is a focus on families. Rather than just updates from the department, it's going to be some resources for families, because we're really trying to focus in on the families. We also have our bi-monthly partner meetings. That's something that where we are providing updates. There may be someone that is providing a best practice. That's where we're putting that in there. And then the other is, I think you all would be very interested in, is we also do an early care and education stakeholder meeting. All of this is available on our website. It's done via Teams, so you can log on. That's where a lot of the early care and education updates are coming from, anything that's new out there, and also an opportunity for us to get some feedback. It's so large that sometimes the feedback or questions are done through the chat, but we promise we will get you everything that you need and answer those questions for you. So wanted to touch on DCY, where we came from, what our goals are, and how you can stay connected. And I will turn it over to the team to go into some details on specific policy and programs.
Thanks, Jen. Good morning. Almost afternoon. We're closing in on lunch. I don't know if it's better to be before lunch or after lunch. My name is Janene Kehl, and I am the Bureau Chief of Professional Development. I also see lots of familiar faces in the crowd today. For those of you that I've met kind of along my professional journey, I worked for almost 20 years. I feel like I'm really dating myself, at the Department of Job and Family Services in the Child Care Bureau. Did a little brief stint at the Department of Education for 3 years, managing the Early Childhood Education Grant, and then worked at the Department of Health before coming to the Department of Children and Youth in the home visiting program. In each of those roles, in addition to supervising the various programs and supporting the various programs that I worked with, I also worked very heavily in professional development. So moving to the Department of Children and Youth and having this opportunity to lead the team that is solely focused on professional development and workforce efforts is no better way to kind of finish out my career as a state employee. So I'm super excited to be here, and our team has just been doing great work and just really passionate about this work. And on that note, I have several members of the team here with us today that I'm going to introduce. I unfortunately cannot be with us with the group this afternoon. And it's unfortunate for 2 reasons. One, I don't get to meet and network with all of you. And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, I'll miss the OCCRRA chips at lunch. So I'm hoping my team can snag some for me and bring them back, although it's Friday, so they may be stale over the weekend. But I do want to introduce some of our other DCY team members, and I'll just ask them to raise their hands. We have Patty Richmond in the back, who is a licensing manager with our regulatory compliance team, and she was also a member of the planning committee for today, so thanks, Patty. And then I have 3 members of the professional development team with us as well today. We have Kristen Farley, who is our literacy specialist. We have Melissa Kortz, who is our cross-systems professional development coordinator. That's a lot of words, but she really supports the whole team as we really try to think about how our various program areas overlap, align, and support each other, especially as we think about talking with professionals and helping them understand the supports that are available to families across the broad range of programs that we have. And then finally, we have Megan Schuler, and Megan is our early learning supervisor. Megan's team supports our early care and education professionals, our home visiting professionals, and our early interventions professionals. So I would encourage you during lunch or as you have time throughout the day to introduce yourself to those folks. They are a wealth of knowledge and super helpful if you have any questions. So today I am going to talk about some proposed revisions to the career pathways. How many of you are familiar with the career pathways in Ohio? Okay, a good number of you. So the career pathways is a model that we use in Ohio, which is a progression for professionals working in the early care and education space for them to see how they can progress through their career and move to higher levels. Our current career pathways level include various criteria that together make up where an individual is on the career pathway, and then as they think about their career growth, what they need to do to move to the higher level. The career pathways level currently includes education, experience, ongoing professional development, and credentials or certifications that people earn kind of through their professional journey. So we wanted to revise the career pathways. It has been in existence for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, maybe even longer than that, has gone through a couple of revisions already. And when we moved to the Department of Children and Youth, this was kind of one of the first things that we talked about doing, is really looking at it. Is it still relevant? We had talked to a number of stakeholders that shared some of the barriers they knew existed in the field for professionals to be able to move up the career pathways. And so we pulled together a work group of people to work on the revisions and the proposed revisions. So I won't go through this list, but you can see that we had a variety of different organizations, agencies, and professionals represented. And for our early care and education workforce, we really did try to include a variety of administrators from various settings. So that might be a not-for-profit or for-profit child care center, a school-based program, a school-age program, and family child care. We really had a lot of variety on this. So a couple of things also at the same time that tied with wanting to revise the CPL to make it more useful for the field and reduce barriers. At the same time that we were talking about these revisions, we were also revising our current Step Up to Quality program standards. So for those of you familiar with that, we moved from a 5-star to a 3-level system. And the CPL is actually embedded or has an alignment to 2 different standards, both related to staff qualifications and ongoing professional development. So you can see here the CPL level is embedded in our staff qualifications Step Up to Quality program standards, in that it's one of the options that an individual at an administrator or lead teacher level can use based on where they fall in the career pathways to meet the Step Up standard for them. The other way that it's used is that the CPL level is embedded as one of the criteria for obtaining your professional development certificate that professionals who were in Step Up to Quality or in Step Up to Quality were required to have. When we did the revisions, we removed the requirement for the professional development certificate, and so we knew we had to update the CPL level because that was embedded in that certificate. So as the work group got started, we really had 3 primary goals that were identified that we wanted to keep in mind as we were making the updates. The first one is that we really wanted to create a streamlined model that was easy to use. For those of you that were familiar with the previous model, 2 whole pages were various points that you could receive for credentials and certificates, and it was challenging sometimes to keep track of those. The other thing that happened is that because of those certificates and credentials and also the CDA, people earned points towards a specific level, but when those things expired, if you didn't renew them, you lost the points, which caused some people to move from a particular CPL level that they had earned down to a lower level, which may have caused them not to be able to meet the step-up program standard for the rating or the level that they had attained. So we wanted to make sure that in the new model, points that were earned were always kept. You didn't lose the knowledge that you had when you earned those points. And then the other thing that we heard, especially as we think about the workforce challenges that we've been talking a lot about here this morning, is that there was a lot of value in recognizing other related degrees that weren't necessarily in the ECE field when you couple those with experience in the field and ongoing professional development. So we wanted to recognize those additional degrees as well. So as I said, our current model was based on a point system, and you got points for certain awards. And then again, as I mentioned, if you had a credential or a certificate or your CDA and it expired, you lost the points. And those were some of the major issues that our stakeholders identified were creating barriers in the field. So the proposed new model is that if you have earned something and that you have achieved a certain CPL level as a result of that, that you maintain it even if something expires. We did add some additional degrees, including related degrees where an individual had 12 semester or 18 quarter hours of ECE. We also added additional examples of experience in the field. One of the benefits and one of the things that we've realized as we've come together at the Department of Children and Youth is that there are a lot of people that are working in early learning fields that may not be specifically related to an early care and education setting, such as home visiting or an early intervention specialist. We wanted to be able to award those years of experience in the field working with young children and their families as well. And then we also included an actual definition now of what a year in a field means. So the new proposed model maintains the 6 levels, which are in the current model. Each level, and I'll show you an example of this in a minute, has up to 4 options. Most of them have 3, but 1 or 2 of them have 4, as a way that an individual can meet each level. So we're not using the point system anymore. The first option in the chart will always define the foundational education level, which is like the baseline equivalency for that level. And then there are additional options where we add maybe an unrelated degree, or instead of a bachelor's, an associate degree, but that's when we couple that then with your years of experience and your ongoing professional development. So here's an example of our level 4. Where we have the bachelor's degree in ECE or the related field as your option 1, your baseline equivalency, and then option 2 and option 3 go on to define either a BA in an unrelated field or an AA in ECE or related field, and then you couple that with either additional hours and years of experience in the field as well. Again, so this is just kind of highlighting some of the things I already said about adding that related degree and then adding those additional options for counting experience in the field. And then we did look at one of the things that we want to make sure of with our proposal is that individuals who have achieved a certain CPL level, we don't want them to go down a CPL level as we think about making this transition to a new model. So with our partners at OCCRRA, we were able to pull a lot of really good data around individuals who had achieved a level, and then looking at the requirements if we switch to that same level, how many of them will continue to maintain their level. So you can see here, like for a level 3, all of them except for 55 met with one of the 2 new options in the field, except for the 55. And with those 55, we believe that there are some that probably have college coursework but not a degree, which that college coursework can translate into ongoing professional development hours, which will then get them enough hours to move them up. And we did this for multiple levels. I'm just giving you one example here. And then finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about our transition timeline as we think about moving to this new model. So our leadership at DCY looked at the work group's recommendations and reviewed those and approved them in the spring of 2025. Just last month, we were able to take this to the Early Care and Education Subcommittee of the Department of Children and Youth Stakeholder Work Group. They reviewed them and we got really positive feedback overall. They especially were appreciative of not losing that level once it had attained when things had, when a certificate or credential may expire. So we'll be working with the registry in order to make the system enhancements that will be needed in order to support the new model and work through a lot of the transition pieces. In the spring of 2026, then we'll be doing kind of a mass communication. So you all are getting a sneak preview today that others haven't seen yet. And then we're shooting for implementation in July of 2026. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura, who's going to share the next pieces.
Good afternoon. My name's Laura Graf. There we go, some enthusiasm. I'm the Deputy Director for the Policy Division at the Department of Children and Youth, and I actually I think I was here last year, and I was able to kind of touch on some of the stuff I'll be talking about today with kind of the rule alignment. So I believe I mentioned it last time, but in 2023 we kind of kicked off this massive, I would call it a study, kind of just a stakeholder overhaul of kind of reviewing what existing rules we have, and then also kind of the what monitoring practices accompany the rules. And so it's been a lengthy, kind of very thorough 2 years. And what basically, when Jeff mentioned kind of DCY coming over as one department and all the different agencies, they brought their rules. And so we have 460 rules. And over 200 of those rules fall in this early care and education space. So it's a majority of our rules, I would say. So you'll see here the setting types that came over into DCY are your family child care settings, your child care center settings, your school-based preschool and school-based school-age settings, and then day camps and in-home aids. And so we kind of looked across the spectrum to figure out, okay, where are there gaps? Where can we potentially align? What do the federal regulations look like for each setting type? And then what revised code exists? So with this whole 2-year effort, basically we were looking and we are aiming with the rules where we can align and streamline, reduce red tape, reduce redundancy. Where can we, based on the stakeholder feedback, where are the areas that we can do alignment now, given that there is a lot of statute that exists in this space, which also in the last 2 years exposed kind of how much is written in statute, which requires legislation to change that. So we do have kind of a inventory of revised code basically that we would like to prioritize based on the feedback that we've received over the last 2 years of what we can change in statute. But we also are looking at where we can align now with the administrative code. And so some of those efforts expose just requests for review, step up to quality, reduction, removals. Those are 2 areas where we could be more consistent and streamline what that process looks like. Assessing and improving compliance, it was evident that just we needed a field guide, basically that explained, okay, you've got the rule, but how is this being assessed in the field? What is the licensing specialist coming out? What are they looking for? What does that look like in reality? What do I need to have in line to be compliant with the rule? So the field guide is something that the department is developing because we heard loud and clear that's kind of what's missing. We've got the rule, but then there's some inconsistencies, and potentially kind of this document will help be consistent with how the rule is being applied in the field and how it's being assessed in the field. And that's not only internally, but externally, right? Like internally we need it, and externally we desperately need it. So this is something that we're really excited about developing and being able to post publicly. And then modernized training. So we've had, since I was here last year, we've had our federal partners come, and they also did our monitoring visit, and it was evident that our trainings that exist needed some more engagement pieces. We needed to modernize our training. So with this effort, looking at the training, we also were able to capture some feedback in addition to what our federal partners gave us, where we can start making some changes to what that training looks like now as well. So this is kind of the timeline of the project. As I said, we kicked it off in 2023. We've started to develop the field guide, and we are going to post our rules and clearance at the end of January is the plan. And initially, it was going to be a lot of new rules. We've kind of pivoted in the sense of we want to be very transparent with what this project changed as far as alignment. And so we made a decision from a department. We were going through all of our rules and we were going to go to a new division. We made a decision to keep Division 2 and mark up as many rules as we can to be transparent about what we are changing. The only 2 rules that will look new are the ones that came from DO. So the preschool and school age does have to be kind of rescinded and then filed as new because they are changing chapter locations under our agency now. So those unfortunately will look new, but we will do our best to document exactly what changed and be completely transparent about what was aligned with those 2 chapters of rules that came over. So those will be filed in clearance at the end of January. And then we'll start to deliver kind of internal, external training on the rules, on the field guide. That will happen. That'll kick off at around March and go through June. And then the rules in the field guide, the go live kind of date for that would be July 1. So background checks. We were so excited about this whole background check and teachers having to get 2 checks if they were in a program that accepted child care development block grant funds. So I think I had kicked it off like this is something we're going to explore. We're so excited about figuring out how we can make this better so that teachers don't have to get 2 checks. I will say I'm unfortunately communicating some bad news, but what we discovered is our CCDBG, which is the block grant checks, the FBI check hits the interface for the National Sex Offender Registry. The teacher FBI checks do not, and the State Board of Education confirmed that. So we can't parse out the FBI check for the Child Care Development Block Grant because it is interfaced. The Attorney General's office has an agreement with the Federal Bureau of Investigation to hit this database when they hit our FBI checks. So unfortunately, the teachers do still have to get 2 checks if they're in a program that accepts the publicly funded child care, which is tied to the Child Care Development Block Grant. I will say we are in talks with the State Board of Education, and actually one of our attorneys at DCY came over from the State Board of Education, and we are really trying to figure out, a lot of people I felt like it was necessary that they thought they should also hit the National Sex Offender Registry check when they do the FBI for the teachers. So I think that that's something that people have a vested interest in, and that would hopefully that would be, a win if we were able to work with our partners and get that in legislation or get that in revised code, and then that way there wouldn't be the 2 checks. So that was kind of what we exposed during this discovery with the background checks, is that there's no way to independently check the National Sex Offender Registry and the FBI. And so unfortunately, 2 checks, but we are working with our partners. And hopefully that maybe this time next year I'll have good news and we'll be like, oh, we don't have to get 2 checks. So we're working together. We'll have a solution soon, but it takes time, and now we know what we know and we can kind of move forward from there. So I jumped ahead, but this slide kind of explains teachers and programs that accept Child Care Development Block Grant funds. It just explains what I just explained, that the FBI check does interface with the National Sex Offender Registry, and the Attorney General has an agreement with the FBI, and that they can't be checked independently of one another, and then just what I said about the other one. But I will say one thing that has been fuzzy in the past, I think, is with volunteers and visitors. And so we are trying to clear up with this next set of rules that will go into clearance the end of January, is that Volunteers and visitors will be clearly defined so that they're not subject to background checks, because they're never left alone with kids and they're never used in staff-child ratios. So there isn't this, oh, how many times are they there? They need a. So we will be cleaning that up. So is that a bonus? Is that a bonus? Okay, good. So any questions on the project and the background checks, and any questions on that before I jump into childcare cred?
So you don't know, you can't tell us what that language is yet, visitor and volunteer yet?
Not yet. It will be in the rules, but we basically defined, and then we've said in the background check rule that the visitors and volunteers are not subject to the background check. Yeah. Question?
So, at our college, if we have students that are in the preparatory schools, and I hate to say this, but back in the day, 2 years ago, ODJFS versus ODE, we would have the track that they're going on to be a pre-K-12 teacher that way. But as a 2-year degree school, we're not technically a teacher preparation program. We're a teacher preparation transfer program. And they're going in that track. But some of those courses are in my pre-K associate program, which at the time was ODJFS licensed programs. So I have 3 courses from the transfer program in my program. So my students are getting this background check twice, and they're getting the national background check twice. And I guess at the college level, what I'm asking is, why do they have to have both, and then both having that in-depth background check on the registry too, when both tracks are technically doing that?
Well, no, both tracks aren't doing the registry.
So if you have an Ohio ID and you submit your background check through Ohio ID, you're getting the RAT back, aren't you?
RAT back's different. RAT back is not the National Sex Offender Registry.
Gotcha. So you don't get that in the Ohio through the
So
Ohio
RAT
ID.
back on our side for DCY, we don't have RAT. I think we have RAT back for foster care. And I'm going to look at Patty. Yeah, but we don't have it for early care and ed on our side for the DCY programs. Yeah. So that's a due. That is a due for early care and ed for teachers.
Okay.
That's RAT back is a due requirement, which is different than the National Sex Offender. Well, it's different than the National Sex Offender Registry. So that's a federal thing, whereas I think due and RAT back, that's where they're kind of hitting. It's a batch. It's an ongoing kind of. Did someone get arrested? Did someone? Yeah. So that's totally different. Yeah. Good question, though. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
In addition to that, ODE licensed programs are requiring our students to have educational aid permits on top of the background checks.
Yeah, that's it. So. That's it.
So that's clear. That's in addition to the 2 background checks. There's also now a requirement for an educational aid.
Okay.
Well, I would have to say it's very odd with the pre-service teacher permit, because as a community college with a voluntary license, we actually don't issue the license, so our students are not technically required to have the 3-year permit, but the same course that they would be doing observations in at a 4-year institution and a 2-year, 4 years are required to have the permit, 2 years are not, which seems very odd to me.
Locally, the public districts will not allow our students in.
Right.
Yeah,
Our staff, they're very confused. Some
Some
have
do,
to,
some
they're very confused.
So, if I could just say something real quick on background checks. I have been in state government for, 20 years now, and we've had background check discussions for 20 years, and probably even before that, right? So the challenge as it relates to background checks, there's certainly state issues, right? There are state required prohibitive offenses that if you work in this setting, here's your list. That's the piece that we are trying to partner with our other state agencies to clean up.
Yes.
And this is just a Jeff opinion, and I'm on camera.
Being recorded.
I believe that no matter what, and really we all believe this, that no matter where you're caring for a child, whether you're a foster home or you're in a school-based or you're in a child care or family child care setting, it should be the same, right? At the end of the day, it should be the same. Because if we're saying that this is a safe setting here with these perimeter fences, it should be the same here. So we all believe that, and we have some level of ability to partner with our other state agencies, DEW or whomever, to align that in the state statute. The layer of complexity comes into each one of these programs have different federal requirements. Mm-hmm. So that's the part that oftentimes is hard for us to navigate because they don't always line up. It's a little easier for us to say as a state that, okay, we're going to change state statute with all these different settings, but then when the feds are saying, but if it's early intervention, it needs to be this. When it's this, it needs to, this setting or program needs to be this. So that's where it gets a little dicey and more difficult. What I will say, and not that this will make you feel better, but we continue to push this because it does not make sense that no matter where you're caring for a child, there should be alignment. So we continue to push the federal partners and the different programs and certainly continue to move forward with state.
But also, if we introduce something, it has to get passed by the general assembly. So there's a lot of obstacles, so I do want to throw that out there too. But I know we've got, Judy's telling me I gotta move on.
Just attached to what
Yeah.
you said about the volunteers and the visitors, because it's not kind of all done yet, so maybe I could, but sometimes our students do service learning, so I don't know where that language will go because they're not really student teachers yet, and I'm assuming student teachers will have to have the background check, even though they're not in ratio and they're not being paid, so they're kind of like volunteers, but I don't know how that language will play out, but I wanted to just throw that out there because that is a big point of confusion too with what our students need when they just do service learning.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, child care cred. This is a new program, $10 million we've got for one fiscal year. So this is a public-private kind of partnership. We have a few goals with this program, which I wrote down that I would like to mention. Sorry. So the goals obviously are making childcare more affordable by sharing costs. It's a cost share model, but supporting employers in attracting and retaining a skilled workforce, assisting employees with the financial burden of childcare, and then sustaining the operations of childcare programs across Ohio. So this is the breakdown of the cost sharing model. Employees 40, employer 40, and then as funding allows 20% for DCY. And so here's the eligibility. The families have to be between 200 and 400% of the federal poverty level, and then it's based on household size. The timeline, again, it's just for this fiscal year. All of this is posted online, so if you want more information on it, it's posted online. There's an application that needs to be filled out. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for allowing us to come and present.